Excellent. Thank you all for being here. I want to first and foremost thank Betsy Arnson, amongst other people, for doing so much of the legwork, research, behind the scenes work, organization, just gathering data and pushing for this conversation to take place. So this agenda today is about mapping downtown, and I'll get into what that means in a second. But first, we're not in new territory here. Plenty of downtowns, small cities, large cities have mapping projects. It's a fairly common sociological tool as well, in sort of figuring out what people value from their homes, from their communities. And people have come before us, so I want to thank a number of folks, the Downtown Ellsworth Merchants Association, so Leslie Harlow and Terry Sargent, Terry Sargent Smith, co-presidents at the time, and have worked on numerous mapping projects, as well as Down East Health Services and Union River Healthy Communities, and the City of Ellsworth bike ped studies done in 2007 by the Ellsworth Planning Department. So a lot of people have come at this, a lot of organizations have come at this in different ways. So we're just building on what they've done and adding our own flair, and we'll see where we take it from here. So a brief background: as I said, mapping has been sort of a social tool for a number of years, and it seems more relevant these days as we return to what some call the experience economy, where we're starting to value social gathering, crafts, local experience, as well as sort of some of the brick and mortar and large box stores lose footing. Smaller downtown organizations and businesses start to take hold, as well as social gathering areas. So today we're going to get into an open discussion to highlight downtown resources that are important to you, and to discuss what features we want to put forward on a map that visitors, newcomers to town will see, as well as people who live here will see. So the goal is to establish a list of recommendations for inclusion on this downtown map. And just to be clear, we're looking for this list of what should be included, what we want to put on the map, what's important to us, but not necessarily what the thing is going to look like, where it's going to be, what it's going to be made of. We'll get into that at a later date. Today is just what do we want to see, what's important to us as a community. Are there questions at this point before we get into the polls? Not seeing any questions. Mapping is sort of an exercise, and though we might not use all of the recommendations, this discussion we'll have today is a really great exercise, not only to codify the physical attributes of our city, but to get into what we agree as important to us in Ellsworth, like the land we use, the places that we want outsiders to see and appreciate, the relationships between us and the places that we inhabit, etc. So with that, I will let Kara load up the first poll, and you'll see it pop up on your screen, and just take a minute or so to select.
John, for some reason, they both come up together, so we may have to scroll down to do both, so sorry about that.
Yep. You'll note you'll need to select at least one option from each question in order to submit it.
It looks like a lot of people have answered question 1 and people are probably working their way down to question 2, but just be sure to scroll to get to question 2.
They don't make that Jeopardy song long enough, I guess.
It looks like on question 2, you're only allowed to answer once. Am I right in saying that?
Yes, I've noticed that as well. Was that intentional, Clara?
No, not at all. See, there are flaws. All right, well, we can bring that to a discussion, I guess, is because I don't think I can switch gears in the middle of all of this. I don't think I can go in and change things. I think it'll reset the poll. So
Yeah. Oh, so just everybody choose your top answer for number 2, and then we'll break that into a discussion to really unpack it a little bit further.
thanks, Michael. All right, I'm going to end the poll now and we can see where we're at. So it looks like most people think that a first-time visitor to Ellsworth will be the top users, followed by annual summer folks and attendees of downtown events, as well as returning day tripper. And actually, let me take a screenshot of that. And then we've got, when thinking about your customers and clients, what questions are most commonly asked? Parking off Main Street. It looks like most people felt that that was the number 1 thing. So maybe I'll go in while John's talking and see if I can figure out a way to launch question 2 again. Well, fingers crossed.
Is there any way you can share the image of those answers with us, Cara, as well?
Yeah, I guess I thought I was sharing. All right. Can everybody see?
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Yeah. Interesting. First time. Did anybody who selected first time visitor to Ellsworth, anybody want to speak more about that, about why that's important to you if you selected it? Or I guess in thinking about that option, you know, if the users are going to be primarily first time visitors to Ellsworth, what do you want those first time visitors to see in a map? How do you want them to interact with the city by viewing a map?
John, this is Sonia. I was gonna just mention for your first question that I think it could be a really great first impression for them to see who we are, what we offer, kind of give them an idea of it's sort of in some ways it's a branding tool of who is Ellsworth.
Yeah, that's a great point. Who is Ellsworth? What is Ellsworth? Anybody have any follow-ups or responses to that sort of rhetorical question of who is Ellsworth reflected back on a map?
You might want to show the breadth of what Ellsworth is, you know, the fact that
so a variety of different types of locations, not just a narrow.
right. Yep.
Looking at the second most popular responses, new residents and attendees of downtown events. So those are 2 fairly different categories, but does anybody want to speak to why they selected either of those?
Hi guys, so it's just me in Sugar Mags, and so I am able to really communicate with people directly, which is really one of the best parts about the store, I think. And in the summer, you know, we have lots of different free maps that have in the few years I've been down here that have kind of been distributed, and I'll tell you the ones that have worked the best and the ones that I choose to give out the most. There is a large map that is on a tablet paper. It's a little bit bigger than legal size. I guess it's probably like the A4 size. And it's bound at the top with like the standard blue tablet. It has a cardboard back and it fits on my counter and I can rip them off as people ask for them. And it is very handy. It is foldable. I do not give out the chamber large magazine type thing as often because it doesn't fit in people's purses. It's too big. It's all advertisements and it is very difficult to find the maps that you need for the community because there's so much filler information. It's like, you know, people don't take the time to read. The people that are reading those things are sitting down in a restaurant to read and they're killing time. And that's when they flip through those things. So I personally really love that tear off map. The one that was done downtown a couple of years ago, that was like a square that I think Nick and Leslie did, was a square that like folded out. It was good. It was pretty, but it didn't have valuable information inside as far as people had a lot of follow-up questions. I think that small print is not ideal. So if there's less images and larger print, I think that's paramount because the number one demographic that I give maps out to are an older age group because that's who still wants a paper map. Everybody else is using their phone. That's it for me.
That's a good point. The difference of looking for stuff on your phone versus a physical copy that you can carry around. I have a follow-up question. Sarah, do you happen to know off the top of your head what some of those follow-up questions were that you were getting from people?
Well, I'll tell you that the number one and number two question that I'm asked for mapping is where are the bathrooms? Because retail stores are not, we don't have to provide a bathroom. And if you're shopping in a retail store, often you don't feel like you can go use a bathroom in a restaurant if you're not choosing to eat there. And so it's awkward, especially for me, as somebody that caters to people with children. You're not going to bring 4 kids into a restaurant to use the bathroom when one of them has to pee if you're not eating there. It's rude and moms aren't going to do it. So the number one question I'm asked is, where do I go? I'm very blessed that the Grand's right next door. And, you know, most summers they've, you know, obviously last summer it was not the case, but I'm able to send people there because I rent from them, and Kim and Nick have always been so great about letting me use that space. But where am I supposed to send people? There's not a great, there's not a great answer. Often I have to send people to the marina or to the park, right? It's really hard. I send people to City Hall sometimes, depending on the number of children or handicap access. So number one question I am asked is, where do I pee? Number two question I'm asked is, where's Rennie's?
Where do I pee and where's Rennie's? Utilitarian questions, to be sure. Does anybody have anything else to add along those same lines? I'm hearing a lot of, imagery over text and clarity rather than jumbled different messages and advertising. Anybody else want to share some questions that they've gotten?
I will just share that, from the behind the counter standpoint as well, it's over a year old, the relevant questions, but by the time we had a map in our hands, it was the drawing, the writing on the, oh yes, this is that place downtown, check it out, whether they were an advertiser or not on whichever map we were using. But it was more utilizing the map and almost a scrap piece of paper to get people notes, and really the personalization piece, the follow-up of having a conversation with a customer. So.
That's great. I kind of want to follow up with what you said, Kelly, because that's so important, that personal connection. So you're using the paper map, but what people really want to know is, what do you suggest as somebody who lives here? Where do you eat? Where should I eat? Rather than what does this sort of advertisement looking paper tell me? Um, so that's going to be important. How do we make the thing look and feel as though it's the community telling the visitors, this is what we appreciate about our town, and this is what we like to eat.
Piggybacking off of Sarah's comment about the second most common question being where's Rennie's, what is the geographic scope that we're looking to have and encompassed by this map?
It's a great question. This is the Ellsworth downtown map. So there is a municipal definition of downtown. Cara, can you sum that up, or Dale maybe? Dale, could you give us the one sentence definition that Ellsworth gives of the downtown location, or the boundaries on the downtown?
I'm not sure that I can. And I don't want to misspeak, so I don't want to give you the inaccurate statement. But I can get the actual definition from the city staff and forward that on. They can distribute that out.
I think the reason that I ask that is because my previous experience with Our Town Belfast Main Street program, they had a kind of a fairly large geographic scope defined by their map that they had, and I think that almost may be something to consider with this, is maybe having an appendix to the map that shows some of the other areas that people are commonly asking for, so that it's a good reference piece that they're carrying around with them for the whole trip rather than just the day that they spend in downtown. That could be something to consider.
Yeah, that's a great point. It might not be really about what is the defined borders of downtown, but if our community values maybe a green space or a natural area that's a few miles outside of downtown, that might make it onto the map, where some other box stores that are closer potentially might not. I'm seeing some comments here in the chat box. Linda Burgess says, my thoughts are Ellsworth could be represented by its past, present, and what's going on. And its goals for the future when stated on a map as an introduction to the city. So that's really interesting, involving time as sort of the fourth dimension into the map of, this is where we were, this is where we're going. That's cool. And Rossenberger Keefe, working for 12 years at Woodlawn, the number one question was about restaurants. Out of town people come for a good part of the day and want lunch. That goes back to what Sarah was saying as well. Let's take a look at this second poll now.
Hopefully I was able to fix it. So I just did the same exact order and question, and
Okay, so let's redo this poll, knowing that we can now select more than one and see what happens.
we've had 80% of the folks on here have voted. So we might be able to close the poll. If anyone is not ready, just raise your hand and I will be sure to not press the button yet to end the poll. Okay, it looks like everybody's set. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. I will share the results. Okay.
Everybody see these results? Excellent. So it's sort of in line with what we were saying. Is anybody who selected something that was in the top percentages want to speak a little bit more, or somebody who suggested something that is in the low percentages want to sort of advocate for their selection?
Can I say something?
Please.
Yeah, for sure. Bathrooms is one of the things that, yeah, somebody else mentioned here that is so key. And when the park was closed here last summer, a lot of what was deterrent is everybody, I was thought, oh, I don't need like public bathrooms when I go visit someplace. As far as like I use the woods, whatever, but most everybody coming, like people actually didn't come to the park, even though there was so much park to enjoy, because they heard the bathrooms were closed, like the park was closed. And I thought that was really interesting because I was like, oh, wow, like people really think that way. My parents do things like that. Like people, that is such a key thing. So yeah, that was why I picked that as my.
Thank you, sir. See in the chat box as well, Lorena says our most frequently heard question at Finn's is, what is there to do around here? So that's, we get the restaurant question, but when people are, finishing up their meal, that's the next question. What's there to do around here? Anyone else? Yeah, Les.
I don't know if it has to do with this map, but I'm just going to throw it out there is, and you guys may have talked about it already. Trash cans. How many people want to hand somebody, walk into a business and hand their trash to someone because they can't find anywhere to throw things away after they've gone to a restaurant or done whatever downtown?
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think that was brought up along with bathrooms on the last Zoom-a-Noo when we discussed potential outdoor seating areas as well. So that is definitely something that is important to the community here. Question is, where do I put my trash? Is that something that could exist on a map as well? Is that something
And-
that's important for us to communicate to people? Sorry, go ahead, Car.
I just want to add one other thing to Lass's point, which I'm sure she would say as well, is year-round trash cans is a hope and a desire. Just that people have trash in January just the same as they do in July. So I just wanted to
Are
add
we
that.
talking
one
about
piece.
summer trash cans?
What's that?
And trash cans and benches are officially out on Main Street, which is very exciting. We had lunch on our bench in front of the candy store yesterday, and it was absolutely amazing. And then I threw my trash away in the trash can, and it was fabulous.
I hadn't noticed. Thanks for saying that.
So I'll add another couple. I'm sorry, Lass, you were going to say something? I'll add another couple prompts into the discussion here, see if anything is churned up. Feel free to talk about them or not. So the focus discussion was gonna really look at how would your business, if you have a business, how would it benefit from this initiative? And if so, what are the specific things your business would like to see on a map? What should be included that you give to customers? And what makes our downtown special, unique? What are put on the map that you'd like visitors here to visit, as part of the pride of our community? Just to start the conversation, because I'm not seeing any hands, A Climate to Thrive just started a grant program for electric car charging stations and have been reaching out to different businesses to see if there's interest in applying for that. So I can tell you my business has been looking at that as a grant program for electric car charging stations. That would be something that would be nice to see on a map and sort of goes back to, I think it was Linda's point about the past, present, and future of Ellsworth, and that might look to some people looking at that map like growth into the future. That's just would help my business, I think. Anybody else with a business or shop on Main Street that might have something to add? Linda, I see your hand up.
Yes, it's just sort of an overview. I'm just trying to take a step back, and I love the idea of a map. But I'm also wondering, when we're choosing things for the map, which are very important to folks, I think one thing I'm thinking about is, okay, we've got the people here. What do they want to see? So the idea is to keep them here and spend their money. So the more resources that we can, or opportunities for people to stay within Ellsworth and spend their money, the better. So I'm kind of seeing that as a driver as well of things that which should be included on the map. But that is just, you know, my thought, my opinion, and I welcome any feedback.
Lori, I see your hand up.
Yeah, parking, RV parking in particular, there is no place for those people to come and park. And I don't know if there's even enough room at the city, but there is every summer, there's several instances of 3 and 4 of them pulling in and parking and saying, oh, you know, they just walk up, they don't come in, they don't ask, they don't do anything. They just sort of go up the street to a restaurant. So if the city could have some place in their giant parking lot that's designated RV parking, I think it would stay full a lot and people would appreciate it. There's no other way to stop and walk to a restaurant in downtown.
Excellent. Thank you, Lori. Annie Sargent, did I see a hand up there?
No, I was giving a thumbs up to Linda's comment.
Excellent.
Yeah, I don't know how much people use this tool, but you know how sometimes on posters there's it's like a box that they can scan with their phone and then they can go to a website. Could we do something like that where then they can see, you know, a bigger picture of who we are and what we have to offer? And, you know, we could do, you know, like quotes or recommendations or, you know, other visitors who have recommendations or, you know, retail of the week, you know, things like, I don't even know, like, or we could even have all the tools that are already available with the city's website, the chamber, Heart of Ellsworth, and have all of them represented as well. So that might be something we could think about.
It's so digital and social media sort of connection. Going back to sort of what Sarah was saying earlier about not cluttering the map up, all of that information could be put, you know, online that people can interact with at their own. Okay, so we have a question as well from Sarah in the chat here. And this is probably a good question for Kara. How is the map being paid for? Is it through advertising? And we didn't discuss this, but there is a grant already in place. I know it's bad luck to talk about grants before they come in, but Kara, do you want to speak a little bit about that?
Sure. This also, I'm glad that I waited. I was going to respond to Kevin's comment about, you know, sort of other layers to the map and just sort of pointing out a little bit that Belfast, our town, Belfast, specifically Zach, their current executive director, they have quite a long history and a very, very well-developed Main Street, and they are a Main Street organization, whereas Heart of Ellsworth is still one step below. We're only an affiliate community. So they have a long history and a lot of support from the community and municipality with their organization. And so there's a lot more resources there to pull from. And this map this year is sort of just kind of starting from a place of bare bones and using the small amount of resources that we have. However, to Sarah's question about the map being paid for, we decided that this year we just want to do a real basic, simple map of the downtown, taking all of these recommendations, implementing as many of them as we can this year, using the rest of the suggestions for the following years. And we did not want to do any advertising. We wanted to make this free and open to everybody this year, just so that we all can sort of be at the same starting point. In the future, it would be lovely to be able to have advertising on here, but we want everybody to be able to participate in the way of giving us input this year. And we have had approval from Machias Savings Bank to help us with this first rendition of the map, Sarah. So again, it's going to be free to, you know, for input from all of the downtown residents and community members that show up to these calls or volunteer to help with this effort. And if anyone has any other questions, feel free to just take yourself off mute and ask.
I just wanted to add, when down the road, when we're thinking about the advertising piece, that it might be nice to get creative about it and get away from the, you know, confetti of ads that end up on these kinds of things where visually it's not appealing. And I don't know about you, but we tend to scan over them. We're not even really seeing them. We're looking for the content. So maybe getting advertisers, but you know, what they get, their advertisement is a little more creative and somehow incorporated into a nicer visual appeal. So just kind of thinking about that. Well, it's important to have those dollars. It's just my 2 cents on that.
So is this map going to have all the like businesses that are part of Heart of Ellsworth? How big is the map going to cover?
The map this year, I think, is only going to sort of cover the Main Street area. So most likely it's obviously Main Street and then other direct offshoot roads and streets and things like that. I don't think that we have enough resources right now to do listings for each of the businesses. And I think that the internal thought process, at least of mine personally, is that we do a very simple map and we do it thoroughly and we do it really well. And then from there, we sort of figure out this winter, having another meeting, sort of reevaluating what it is that we've put out this year and trying to figure out what didn't work, what did work, and then moving forward on, you know, year 2, which would be the summer of 2022.
And is it something that we will all like have some copies of that we can give to customers?
It's our,
or where will they get them?
Well, it's our intention that this definitely will be a PDF that can either be downloaded or each of you could take and put onto your website. I don't know yet with the amount, with the budget amount that we have, if we're actually going to be able to produce enough copies for everybody. So there may be some copies. We might be able to produce, you know, something that's just sort of like a printed, you know, on an 8.5 by 11 sheet, or maybe we'll be able to make it so that it's 2 maps per 8.5 by 11 sheet where there's just a cut charge type of thing. Again, it's like if we get a lot of call for people wanting printed maps, then maybe we need to look at prioritizing that for 2022. It's just right now we have such a finite amount of resources for this that I'm just not sure how much. And also we need to hear from people like what it is that they want, you know. Does that make sense, Les? Okay.
Yeah, and or if you did a PDF, is we could print them out.
Yes, absolutely. They could be downloadable on our website, on other websites, if other people and other entities inside Ellsworth are interested in having that be a downloadable PDF on their you know, on their websites as well. Obviously, this is a community resource, so we will be sharing it. So yeah, great question, Les.
Dale, go ahead.
Just on the funding piece, starting Monday, we start the budget workshops. One of the pieces that we don't have any information on this yet, but the city is supposed to be getting $800,000 of that from the latest bill that came out. And so that's what we're going to be talking about for a while now, is getting ideas about, it's one-time funding. So as you come up with ideas, that may be something to think about, especially the long-term sustainability of this. If you're thinking about creating it digitally and being able to have some resources. So I just wanted to put that out there and keep that in mind as that goes forward.
Excellent. Thank you, Dale. Some potential city allocations of funding could be very helpful for disseminating the map to different local businesses. Um, the digital PDF copy also seems like it could go in line with Sarah's recent suggestions in the chat that it could be customizable. You know, there could be a space for businesses to write in that note. You know, could even have like a note from the owner here. This is my favorite place. Go here, etc. Personalizing the touch. Anybody have additional specific ideas? Maybe moving away from the businesses and entities on Main Street and other areas, green spaces, parks, things that we want visitors to really interact with while they're here. Do any of you get that question from visitors to your business? Or where can I walk my dog, or where can I get some fresh air, that kind of thing?
I would say dogs, yes.
Where do you direct them, Les?
Oh, I just tell them that most everything around is dog friendly, but just to have that known that, you know, like people will say, can they bring them in my shop, or, you know, is there somewhere, you know, just it's a thing that a lot of people traveling with pets, kind of like looking for a hotel with a pet, or, you know, pet friendly, whatever. I think that's a good one.
There's a question from Ann Keefe about eventually would there be a master map or a panel or a kiosk of some sort, in other words, in the city somewhere for people to physically interact with? This is something that has come up multiple times on the Zoom at Noon meetings. Go ahead, Car.
I will just also say, John, I think that this was one of your, at least visions you shared with me prior to joining the Heart of Ellsworth board. And it was something that we tried to, not necessarily at City Hall, but a kiosk on Main Street. I think that was one of your original concepts that you came to us with. So it's just kind of exciting to see this loop back around to it, and support from the community for it. So.
I was also just going to mention, and this might be to your point, John and Cara, that, you know, when people are going down to go to Bar Harbor, many times they don't even know, like, to turn right down Main Street. So having something on that corner that really highlights who we are, you know, on Main Street or downtown, and come check it out, whether it's listing of stores or just a statement about our historic downtown, I think would be great.
It is probably those historic downtown signs that are on Oak Street, and then there's one on High Street, maybe the one on High Street in front of it was on Cadillac's property, may have come down, but certainly rebranding or tying in with some of the imagery.
Absolutely. Anybody want to follow up on that? That goes back to the not only what do we have, but who are we? You know, are we historic? Are we utilitarian box stores, which is super convenient as a hub city, which we definitely are? Are we, you know, a quaint downtown that is less touristy? You know, who are we? What are we?
It's a little existential, don't you think, John?
Heady, very heady questions here.
I don't know if I can answer that today.
We are all of those things, John.
And some of those signage, the permanent signs that were up, did coordinate at one time with the flags on Main Street, as well as part of the historic district or downtown district we designated along High Street and Water Street. So, you know, again, part of imagery and part of branding to tie the directional signs, which sometimes become like with the banners or et cetera.
How many of us use DOT directional signs or have some up around the city for our businesses? Okay, so there are a few. So
I lost mine, but I'm getting them again. They expired and whatever.
I'm seeing 3 or 4. Okay. Yeah.
Dale, I know you and I share a little bit of a zest for signage. So I wonder if maybe you could give us a little bit of an insider perspective on signage around the city, specifically to downtown, or just in general, what's happening.
Yeah, I can share. There's nothing really happening, but you and I talked probably a year and a half ago. I don't know when, in terms of when this came up, but it really is the idea of signage really to connect the entire city as we expand our walking trail and being able to really link the whole community, is to have signage that links the whole community so that it's not chopped up, disconnected, that it has some theme. And so as we start to do that, we think globally and not just get into situations where we put one type of sign in one location and then another, because then it disconnects everything. So that's where we had talked about of wanting to have those signs to direct people so they know if they're at the harbor, how do you get to downtown? If you're downtown, how do you get to out to the walking trail and things like that. So as you talk about this, I think it would be important to kind of link all of that together.
I have one comment on signage that for the last 15 years, the idea of down east transportation, the bus routes, that there's no bus stop signs anywhere. Now, I don't know the aesthetics of it and how, but that drives me crazy that there's a bus route in town that does, has a service and nobody knows. There's no bus stop signs anywhere. Like in the city hall, I was on the board of directors of Down East Transportation 10 years ago, bringing this up. But even at City Hall, where the main bus stop is, you don't know, the bus hangs out by the dumpster, you don't really know where they tell you to get the bus at City Hall, and there's not even a place to where it directs you to. So I think that might be something that would increase possibly use of the bus, but it's, I guess it ties in with, I agree with Dale that having this coordinated approach to signage, but so I've been holding this in for the last 5 years. So I thank you for letting me express this.
I had a question about the buses too, and just that what we have or how much being included in.
They do have
I think that's great.
EM powered or EMP houred, single cylinder, double cylinder.
Hey, Lori, will you mute yourself, please?
Thank you.
Oh,
Where did it go? I must have hit it by mistake.
you're not muted.
I am now.
Awesome, thank you. Go ahead, Les.
I was just saying that I agree about the buses and, possibly with the idea of, places to park or, where, Lori was talking about RVs, or you were talking about, places to charge cars and stuff like that, that having, not being aware of what kind of public transportation there is, the idea of possible increasing public transportation, in our city, just ideas that came to me too. And it's not clear, and I've worked kind of next to where the bus stops for 25 years, and I, don't know anything about that bus. And I don't know where to find that information. I mean, other than calling Down East Transportation, so.
Yeah, this is excellent. Thank you. Adds to the existential list. Who are we and how did we get here, right?
I wonder if we could somehow advertise a bit. I think the bus goes from Ellsworth to Bar Harbor, and Bar Harbor parking is sometimes really tough. I wonder if we could do a little bit more advertising around that benefit of, parking in Ellsworth. Then they could be in here for a while, shop, and then they could go over to Bar Harbor.
So are you suggesting they park in Ellsworth?
Well,
Or do you
yeah,
think of like, taking up our parking and then going to Bar Harbor?
that's a good point. I was just thinking,
I'm not down with that.
I was just thinking it's something that we just don't mention much of, that there's that connection. But you're right, it would impact us. I didn't really think that.
This isn't the meeting for this, but the other part of it is Bar Harbor is concerned about overcrowded. There's too many people in Bar Harbor. The whole idea, if you had this, regional approach to transportation, so that people who want to get out of Bar Harbor and maybe want to come visit Ellsworth, they might want to have that ability to take a bus to Ellsworth. That could possibly work both ways, but it would, I think having transportation, the Island Explorer come out to Ellsworth would be something that, would be a great thing. And I think the park, I know they've got this transportation plan going, but they should look at their community as more than just MDI. The park community is Ellsworth and down East Main too. So, that's maybe a discussion for later, but I think having integrated transportation between MDI and Ellsworth would be a great thing for Ellsworth.
The stop that had been established with the Ramada, the Timberland Acres, and then it did coordinate with the chamber because we were part of the making it happen at the time. That was partially funded by the hotels along that stop to get it closer to downtown. And I'm not sure, I've lost track of where that went, but certainly might be worth looking into again.
Going back to identity a little bit, we know we're all involved with Acadia and Bar Harbor, and obviously the tourist season there affects Ellsworth. Does anybody have any direct, can you relate that back to what might go on a map to either, capitalize on those tourists going to Acadia, or to offer them the less crowded solution to their vacation, something like that? Or is it a problem? Is it something we want to get into here in Ellsworth? Oh, go ahead, Les.
I don't know about specifically about Acadia, but I just feel like my experience with the tourists who come to Ellsworth in the summer are that a lot of times people are just like, Bar Harbor can be its own little funnel, and they just some people just want to get through Ellsworth. But, a lot of the people that come to Ellsworth in the summer are people from the Scudic Peninsula who are summering there, and people from Blue Hill Peninsula, and people who come and stay at the lakes, and then they come into town. By thinking it's just the Bar Harbor summer people, I almost feel like there's so many people who actually come in the summer who don't, who could care less about Bar Harbor. They might like other parts of Acadia, but they aren't necessarily like, it's not just that's not the only draw in the summer. There's a lot more than that.
Would there be any way to, or has there ever been any way to collect information from these visitors? Like at the retail shops and restaurants, with some sort of incentive for filling out something or doing it online or whatever that would be. It might be interesting to hear from them why they come see us, and so that we're
It'd be a great use of that QR code that Sarah was mentioning.
Mm-hmm. And with an incentive, I think it's got to be incentivized for people to actually do it, probably.
Heidi, to your point, I know, and Crystal, you don't, if you're doing something else, you don't need to turn your screen on, and you don't even need to comment if you don't want to. But I do know that the Maine Office of Tourism, obviously collects quite a bit of data of the folks who visit our state in its entirety, and they even have the ability to track all the way down to exactly where it is that people are spending their time through cell phone tracking, which is kind of nasty, but at the same time, it is the world that we live in today. And I don't really know, I suppose, Crystal, through you, maybe you and I are able to kind of dig and connect at the statewide level to see what sort of data we can, I don't know how it works. I don't know if it's a purchase. I don't know if it's, and again, I'm sorry, I didn't
No,
mean to
that's
put you on the
okay.
spot.
That's
but-
okay, Kara. I'm sitting right here listening as I work I'm typing and listening at the same time, and I totally heard you. Yes, you're right, and that's a new resource for them, and I do have some of it that they recently sent to me, so we can take a look at that together and see what we can see. Surveys for local areas have been something that the Maine Office of Tourism used to support, but no longer does. So getting research like that completed, it has to be done on a local level, which is why we haven't been able to do much of it. But another opportunity that I could help you with is the visitor information requests that I receive for sending our regional guide to. The requests include information about what area of the region they want to visit, and Ellsworth is one of those areas that they can check. So we could take a look through all of those, the historical records, and get some information about how many people at least are looking at that area. And it is possible, if you wanted to, we could look into sending a brief questionnaire to those people who did check off Ellsworth.
Excellent. No, that's encouraging, Crystal. And I will out you and just say that I completely am so appreciative of the partnership that we have with DART and the continuing relationship, because there are a lot of resources that we wouldn't have access to otherwise. So thank you, Crystal. And thank you for being here today.
You're welcome. I'm so glad to see what you guys are doing.
Linda, I saw a hand up earlier. Did you want to say something?
Just a point I wanted to make, getting back to the map. As Kara has said, we have a finite amount of resources to do the map and what we can fit on the map. And I really like the idea of hand messaging folks to writing things to our neighbors. And even though this is a project just for downtown, I'd like to see how we can network it to our friends and neighbors that have businesses on the outskirts, whether it be verbal or writing that note, some way that we can also let folks know that there are things going on at the brewery or whatnot, other than putting it on the map per se, as part of an icon, but some sort of relevance to the outskirts of the area. I know that's going back a little bit further conversation, but that's just what I wanted to chat on. So thank you.
Thanks. Speaks a bit to Dale's point of sort of interconnecting all these different places. Dale, I see you have your hand up as well.
Yeah, just briefly, it probably needs a lot more conversation, but we're expecting the area to receive a lot of tourists this summer. And part of what you're talking about is being able to catch people so they're not just driving through. And the fortunate thing about Ellsworth is that we have a lot of space between the time that they cross the Ellsworth line to the time they get into the downtown area. And so maybe there's some way of a quick message that gives them the link to the digital site where you're going to post this information. And once they're into that, you can have all kinds of messaging in terms of come visit this restaurant. Here's a special we have today, whatever it might be, which might be enough to entice somebody to stop rather than drive through to actually stop. So there may be some ways of putting something, a road sign out, DOT sign, whatever it might be, to link that to the digital piece.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We're getting on just about the last minute here. If there's any last minute comments, you can put them in the chat box or say them now, or send an email to Kara at heartofellsworth.org. But But I'll keep the Zoom open for the next few minutes if there's some last minute discussions. This has been really great. Thank you all for being here this afternoon and making Ellsworth a better place to be.